Hi there, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining. Now, this is a post-election results analysis, a breakdown, a detailed breakdown of the election in terms of those who win and those who lost. Okay, we have winners and we have losers, we have wins and we have losses. And that is what we're going to do in this afternoon's, in this morning's program. Now, make sure that you like the video. You are also sharing the video with as many people as possible so that our platform can grow. Now, we all understand now that the JLP has emerged as the winner of the general elections for 2025, with Dr. Holness winning a third consecutive, and his party, of course, winning a third consecutive term in office. Means that Dr. Andrew Michael Holness has gotten a mandate from the Jamaican people. Now, the Gleaner opened up the story yesterday that the majority of the citizens, are suggesting that Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, has a mandate to govern, but it's not the majority of Jamaicans. We have to contextualize it and say the majority of the minority. We know that the voter turnout was very low, standing at 39.5, based on what the Gleaner reported yesterday, 39.4, 39.5. That is in the high 30s, which is a very low voter turnout. We haven't had a high voter turnout since probably 2011. And when we say high, it probably was, in the 50s. We have not been doing well at elections, and that should be sending a very conscious message, a very important message, I should say, urgent message, for want of a better word, to our leaders that something is not right in Denmark. Okay, something is just not right in what is happening in Jamaica. We understand that it seems like our citizens are totally disconnected from the political realm, and they do not like what they see. They do not like what they are experiencing in their daily lives. They do not see the manner, a clear manner, or they can't see a way out as they continue to traverse the Jamaican landscape. To them, the politicians are the same. They're not presenting any distinctive choices for them. And as a result of that, they are, they're displaying voter apathy. No interest whatsoever in the politics of Jamaica. And that's a very, very sad state that we find ourselves in. So we're going to look at I'm looking here at the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, the Electoral Office of Jamaica, and these are the preliminary results. Remember now that some constituencies are still being counted as we speak. For example, in Portland East, where Darrell Vaz's wife, Anne-Marie Vaz, lost to Isaac Buchanan. And that was really a surprise defeat by Anne-Marie, as we were given the impression was given that she was a hard worker. But there have been a lot of rumors, that have been disseminated, suggesting that she and her husband are selling off the lands in Portland, and that is why people decided that they would have not voted for her. Okay, so that is something that is interesting, something that we need to discuss and to investigate more into. All right. Now let us look at Kingston Western. We see here where the JLP is leading, or the JLP is the winner of this constituency, and we have that they've won by 8,475 votes to the PNP 1,364. Okay, so that is that constituency of Kingston Western. Definitely, we know that that was always been a JLP constituency. Kingston Central, this is now where I was very surprised because I was calling it for the JLP, but the PNP won. They did not win by a hefty sum. Okay, they did not win handsomely, so they just won by a very razor thin margin. So the JLP copped 4,727 votes to the PNP 4,739 votes. Now that is interesting because I would have thought that Lawrence Rowe would have, you know, inked out the victory for the GLP. The fact that he went over, he flipped to the other side, but he did not. So obviously he's not as popular as he says he is, because were he as popular, then the people would have voted for the GLP. We understood that he's or was popular on both sides of the political aisle, but that could have been, rumors and not necessarily the reality. Kingston East and Port Royal, that was always a PNP constituency. So of course, I think it's by Philip Paulwell, and he won it handsomely, 6,245, and the GLP 1,472. St. Andrew West Central, that went to the GLP, 8,414 votes to the PNP's 7,235. St. Andrew Western went to the PNP, also 8,115 and 4,443 to the GLP. Now, St. Andrew West Central went to the GLP, 7,054 to the PNP's 4,953. And we're going to be looking at some of the key constituencies that we thought would have, been interesting watch. And we have here St. Andrew Northeastern, and it went to the JLP also, who copped 5,294 votes to the PNP, 3,707 votes. Now, we are going to look at St. Thomas Western, in which, the GLP won 9,252 votes to the PNP's 7,724. And we note the work that they have been telling us, the GLP has been telling us, is happening in St. Thomas, the new highway, and all of the malls, the shopping centers, and the jobs that were going to be created. So it's interesting that, of course, and maybe it's not surprising, to say the least, that St. Thomas Western went to the GLP. But St. Thomas Eastern, that was represented by Michelle Charles of the GLP, she lost the election to the PNP representative. So here we have Michelle Charles losing. She won, well, she lost, she gained, she didn't win, but she gained 6,937 points to the PNP 7,356. So this is a big win. I don't know if they're even going to recount that, okay? Because that is, quite a big win for the PNP. No, this was a big showdown, and one which people were very surprised at. The fact that in Portland Eastern, Anne-Marie Vaz, the wife of Darrell Vaz, actually lost, and she actually gained 8,181 votes to the PNP Isaac Buchanan, who won it with 8,316 votes. Now, that is really a controversial, result there. And I think I understand that it's being recounted, even though Isaac Buchanan is declaring himself as the legitimate winner and one who is headed to Gordon House. So that's interesting to see how that plays out. And we have to also look at, the fact is, if she loses, if after the recount she loses, it means therefore that we have to re-examine what we mean by hard work by our members of parliament. What do we mean by hard work? Are their hard work, or is their hard work often rewarded? Are they incentivized for their hard work? And it should be by the votes that they receive. But it doesn't seem in this case that is the reality. Now, of course, Portland Western is won again by Darrell Vaz. Now, we go over into St. Anne Northwestern, the GLP cop that vote to. I think that is it that by what's his name? I forgot his name now, Xavier Main. I'm not sure if that's where he is, but the GLP won, and it's 8,050 votes to the PNP 7,488 votes. Okay, Trelawney Southern, we have that the GLP also won 6,832 to the PNP 5,215. That was quite an interesting result there. Now, St. James East Central went to the GLP also, and that vote, the votes counted was 7,469 that the GLP won by, to the PNP 4,543. St. James Northwestern, that also was a big win for the GLP. And isn't that the vote isn't that the region that that Malahoo Fort is in? Anyway, the GLP won 6,312 to the PNP 3,514. St. James Central went to the GLP 6,587 votes to the PNP 4,655 votes. St. James West Central also went to the GLP. So the GLP copped all, seems to me, of all the St. James votes, right? No, except for St. James Southern. The PNP got that vote, but most of St. James actually went to the GLP. The GLP dominated St. James, except for St. James Southern, which went to the PNP. The PNP won, and their results were 6,483 votes to the GLP, 6,276. So not a very big win here. Okay, not a big win. So the GLP, we can safely say, is dominating in St. James. Hanover Eastern went to the GLP also, the PNP rather, went to the PNP, and they won by 5,905, okay, votes. And Hanover Western, 6,995 also went to the PNP. Now, Westmoreland was very shocking to me that all of them, well, we know that it has always been a PNP constituency, but in recent times, with the last election, the GLP, it was sort of flipped in some of the constituencies. So we have Westmoreland Western went to the PNP, and they won by 7,992. Westmoreland Central went to the PNP also, 9,916. And Westmoreland Eastern, 7,558. Dr. Dayton Campbell actually won the seat. And this was a seat that was formerly controlled by P.J. Patterson, or presided over. He was a former MP. And we know that just before the election that he endorsed Dr. Dayton Campbell. It's almost like they were smelling a rat, but thankfully, whether his endorsement paid off or the people decided that they wanted to return the seat to the PNP. Now, St. Elizabeth Northwestern went to the GLP, 5,555 votes, to the PNP, 3,831 votes. St. Elizabeth Northeastern went to the PNP. So this parish there, St. Elizabeth, well, we see that it seems to be half GLP, half PNP. Is it? No, so we have St. Elizabeth Northeastern went to the PNP, 8,331 votes, to the GLP, 7,735. St. Elizabeth Southwestern went to the GLP, 9,705 votes, to the PNP, 8,462 votes. St. Elizabeth Southeastern went to the GLP, 9,318 to 7,569 votes to the PNP. Now, Manchester Southern, we know that Peter Bunting won his seat, right? And he won it 8,573 to the GLP, which lost the seat by 7,903. Well, they didn't lose it by, but they lost the seat. They only were able to obtain 7,903 votes. Okay, so Peter Bunting won his seat. Manchester Central, everyone was looking at that. That's the constituency that Rhoda presides over, and she won. She won by 9,998 votes to the PNP 8,916 votes. I don't think they need to recount because I think that she has safely won her seat. Now, we have Manchester Northwestern went to the PNP. They won it handsomely, 7,025 votes to the JLP, 5,880 votes. Okay, and the list goes on. We also know, let us look into Clarendon. Clarendon North Central went to the JLP, 5,877 votes. Clarendon Central went also to the JLP, 6,674 votes. Clarendon Southwestern went to the PNP, and they won it by 7,328 votes to the JLP 5,016. Clarendon Southeastern went to the JLP, and they won it by 9,515 votes, and the PNP, actually, they obtained 8,013 votes. And we went over now to St. Catherine, and there is also a division in terms of the votes. Some of, it's divided up between the PNP and the JLP. Now, this was a very, very interesting election to have watched and to have observed and to analyze. And when I was on the live with Dr. Clive Hansen, it was a very interesting to see how the election played out, particularly the drama of the night was the seat of Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, which appeared at the beginning stages that it was going to be won by Buchanan, but eventually Dr. Andrew Michael Holness emerged as the winner because we saw where the party, the governing JLP, was on its quest to win the election, and yet still it seemed in the initial stages that Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, was about to lose his seat. And that would have, been a constitutional crisis. Yeah, because had his party won and the prime minister losing his seat, it would have been unprecedented in Jamaica's history. And we don't know how the constitution would have dealt with it. And there would have been some combat, some internal combat. And how would that be would it have resulted in the subtraction within the GLP hierarchical structure? Could be, because humans and people are there and they're power hungry and people fight over power, right? And they do some crazy stuff when unusual things or unusual circumstances prevail, right? Very important that we understand that. Now, what are some of the takes from this recently held election? Well, first of all, we had a very low voter turnout, and that was something that is suggesting that even though Andrew Holness is telling himself that he has obtained a mandate from the Jamaican people, but that is not necessarily true. You have obtained a mandate from your diehards and probably from a very few undecided voters and those who might have flipped from the PNP to the GLP. But the fact is that you did not receive a mandate from the Jamaican people. Had you had 70% or more of the electorate went out to vote, then you could have said that you received a clear mandate. Okay, and had you won by, let's say, 40 seats, then that would even have strengthened the mandate that you would have received. But you only won with 34 seats, with 34 seats to the PNP 29 seats, based on what we have now from the preliminary countings. Remember now that they will continue to count. Recounts are being done right as we speak, so we can't speak definitively. But as of yesterday into this morning, I read the papers and I didn't see any signs of change or any new information that has been disseminated from the Electoral Office of Jamaica, the EOJ. So we are thinking that the GLP still has copped 34 seats to the PNP 29 seats that they have copped, that they won. Another important lesson that we've learned from the election, 2025, is that the PNP, even though they lost, they had a crushing defeat in 2020, but they really, were able to have flipped a number of the seats. And one of the surprising ones was Portland Eastern. That was very surprising to me. But of course, the Vibes Cartel effect has we can't ignore that effect, the Vibes Cartel effect. The fact that, Isaac Buchanan, who was a lawyer of Vibes Cartel, I'm sure Vibes Cartel would have helped him financially in more ways than we can imagine. And also the fact that, in promoting him on his TikTok, on whatever social media that Vibes Cartel finds himself on. I'm sure that I saw him on TikTok suggesting that people should vote for Vibes Cartel. And we know the psychological effect and the psychological manipulation that Vibes Cartel holds over Jamaicans, as far as entertainment is concerned. And he is, I don't want to say a role model, but he is a celebrity in the eyes of many Jamaicans. So they see him as a very important person, and hence they would obey his call and his beckon and his call, right? I'm sure that they would have heeded his beckon and call to vote for Isaac Buchanan, and to the loss of the seat by Anne-Marie Vaz, who appears, I can't say that she is a hard worker, but she appears to be, or to have been, a very hard worker. Now, some people are saying that all she does is fix roads. And I think that that is something that she also has to take an introspective look at. I know she also worked at the school bus system, and she worked hard at it. And maybe there are other things that she has done. But yes, I think that primarily on her social media, what we saw was mainly roads, right? And of course, the school bus when it came out in recent times. Okay, but our MPs have also got to be very careful about just giving us one side of what they're doing, right? They have to promote that. What are they doing for education? What are they doing for healthcare? What are they doing for removing the restrictions on Jamaicans enjoying nature, their beaches? Okay, are they selling off lands? There are lots of rumors going on in Portland that Anne-Marie Vaz and her husband, and these are allegations. I'm not suggesting that they are truth. It's truth, that it is truthful information, that the facts have been verified, because these are, again, are rumors, and people in Jamaica talk a lot, and they talk a lot about things that they don't know. But in light of what is happening in Jamaica, there perhaps is some truth to it, that because we see that our politicians are selling off lands, prime lands, to the Chinese and to other foreign investors. And every time they sell off our land, it means that we are landlocked, and we won't be able to go to our beaches. Certain other prime areas will be cut off. We have to understand these realities. And so I am not sure what the people in Portland are seeing as regards what Darrell Vaz and his wife are doing there. We just don't know. We don't have the facts. But those who are witnessing, those who are experiencing that sort of, or those sort of developments, are the ones who decided that they would have voted her out. Okay, but it is still being counted, and we have to be very, very patient with what is going to happen with that seat. Okay, whether she will emerge eventually as the winner. Now, Malahoo Ford's seat, I was surprised that she also, well, I shouldn't say I was surprised. I think she was going to win. I think she was going to win. But it shows you that, that Dr. Andre Horton did not put up much of a fight. I mean, he was not visibly on social media saying what he was going to do. Within the last few days or weeks before the election was held, rather, you could see him there, saying what he's going to do and fixing a road. I saw him visibly saying that he was engaged in fixing a particular road that was in the constituency. But there was no vision that he had, crafted for the people of that constituency. So he lost to Marlene Malahoo Ford, who is also cupping that seat a third time, right? So this is her third consecutive time cupping that seat. So it could be unprecedented, I'm not sure, for that constituency. Another victory that should be highlighted was, Juliet Holness's win. That's the wife of the prime minister, that she also has won that seat for the third time, which is also unprecedented for that constituency. that historically, it has been members of parliament were only able to win that seat twice, okay, but not thrice. And she has won that seat, okay. This is her third consecutive victory in that constituency since 2016. So she won in 2016, 2020, and she's now winning it in 2025. So that is a big win, a historic moment for Juliet Holness. And kudos to her. So both she and her husband have won their seats safely, and that is very, very impressive. So Dr. Andrew Holness has won for the JLP and for himself a third consecutive term in office, which means that Labour marching on to victory, Labour Party marching on, Labour Party marching on, Labour Party marching, 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 marching on to victory. So the Labour Party has won that, and they have really marched on to victory in spite of the allegations of corruptions, in spite of the fact that people are talking about inequity, economic inequity in our Jamaican economy, where there is a really, should I say now, a marked difference between the rich and the poor, right? And where we had in, well, we can't say that now because according to Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, crime has been reduced, but throughout his tenure as this during the second term, and the first term also in office, we had a high murder rate. We were one of the top, number one or number two, in terms of murders. We were high on the list. However, Jamaicans have chosen to give Dr. Andrew Michael Holness a third consecutive term in office. So Jamaica has decided, and the decision is unequivocal, that Dr. Andrew Michael Holness is Jamaica's next prime minister, having won a third consecutive term, which is unprecedented for the JLP party, and he will take up the reins of government shortly. Let's congratulate him, let's support him, and let's understand that this is our Jamaica. This is not Dr. Andrew Michael Holness's Jamaica. It is your Jamaica that you must build, because if you don't build it, nobody else will build it for you. Hold him accountable, allow him to have his honeymoon of winning, of his victory. He needs that, and he needs to rest. I would also admonish Dr. Andrew Michael Holness that you need to rest. You have worked hard. He went across the entire nation, the entire island, and sometimes you could see him on TikTok even at 12 o'clock in the night, 12 midnight. And later, he was there in these constituencies, in these communities, interacting with the people. And he can't just sit. People want to talk. He's the prime minister. People want to hug him and talk to him. So it's not that he can just sit there passively and look and, and get some rest, but he has to be actively involved, making speeches, hugging people, making promises, engaging them, right? Which would have been a very mammoth task to do. So let's congratulate him, wish him well, pray for him. Because at the end of the day, it is God who sets up and he puts down, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. Okay, it is God who selects, and who, when I say selects, it is his will, his permissive will, that they become presidents or prime ministers. He might not necessarily agree, as you know, with what they're doing, but in his divine will, because he knows better. He knows what is best for us. Even when we're going through hell, God knows what is best. So let us accept Dr. Andrew Michael Holness as our next prime minister, or the next prime minister of Jamaica land we love. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you like, share, and subscribe. Like the videos. The videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. See you in another video. Ciao.